Look closely at this photograph. It's going viral for reasons that have almost nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with a quiet, devastating act of cultural warfare. In the image, a 20-year-old Filipina stands between Novak Djokovic and Eileen Gu at the Laureus World Sports Awards. She is smiling casually, almost softly, as if she's surrounded by old friends rather than two of the most formidable forces in the history of athletics. But here's what nearly everyone misses. The statement wasn't in her expression. It was in her dress. This is not a story about a young athlete simply thrilled to receive an invitation to the Oscars of sports. When Alex Eala walked onto that red carpet in Madrid on the evening of April 20, she had no intention of fading into the background beside the European elite. She arrived with a purpose so absolute, so carefully constructed, that it should send a shiver through every tennis academy from Barcelona to Florida. She wore a stunning blush beige modern Filipiniana gown, designed by her uncle Rajo Laurel. At first glance it's elegant, understated, and undeniably beautiful. But then you notice the bold waist cutout, a detail that screams modern, powerful athlete, revealing the kind of core strength built through years of solitary drills and punishing fitness regimens. That cutout alone was a quiet declaration: I am not a debutante, I am a competitor. The real power, however, rested on her shoulders in the form of a bolero jacket. That jacket was crafted entirely from traditional piña fabric, a delicate textile woven from pineapple fibers, deeply rooted in Filipino heritage. It featured the iconic butterfly sleeves of a classic pañuelo, a silhouette that carries centuries of colonial history, resistance, and adaptation. She literally draped the soul of the Philippines across her shoulders, on the most exclusive global stage imaginable. Now try to envision the atmosphere inside the Laureus Awards. The room is a pressure cooker of billionaires, Olympic champions, and the silent architects who dictate the future of global athletics. It is an environment deliberately designed to make newcomers feel small, to remind them of the long ladder they've yet to climb. Yet Alex Eala moved through that crowd with the posture of a veteran champion, not stiff or rehearsed, but fluid and certain. The way she styled her look, the way she engaged with the press, the sheer unforced confidence radiating from her every gesture made one thing unmistakably clear: she was not a guest, she was an arriving force. The visual impact of a Southeast Asian woman holding her ground beside the titans of sports history is not merely striking, it is transformative. She looks utterly natural, as though she has inhabited this elite circle since birth, and that's the terrifying part for her future opponents. The tennis world is a highly exclusive club. To receive an invitation, you must be considered absolute royalty, or you must behave as if you already are. And there she was, a girl who began her journey on the municipal courts of Manila, standing under the blinding lights of Spain, looking for all the world like she owned the entire building. She later captioned the photo online, nodding that she was sandwiched between greatness. But the truth, visible to anyone with eyes, was that she was radiating her own immense power. Major global outlets immediately recognized this queen energy, nodding that she resembled a movie star in possession of absolute authority. To understand why this specific moment in Madrid fundamentally alters the landscape of Asian tennis, we have to rewind to an era when nobody, least of all the Western sports establishment, believed she belonged in that room. Before the flashing lights of Madrid, before the designer gown and the viral selfie, Alex Eala was fighting a completely different battle: the battle to be seen at all. Carrying the hopes of an entire nation in a sport that has rarely, if ever, produced a Southeast Asian champion is a crushing weight, the kind that bends most people long before they reach adulthood. The world of professional tennis is an unforgiving ecosystem, structurally engineered around European and American powerhouses. The massive funding, the elite training academies, the relentless media attention, all of it flows naturally toward those traditional geographic centers. If you're born outside that privileged bubble, the game is rigged against you from day one. For a teenager from the Philippines to enter that arena requires more than pure physical talent. It demands an absolute, almost irrational refusal to be ignored. So her decision to wear that piña bolero on the global stage was deeply, deliberately calculated. It was not a last-minute fashion choice or a simple nod to her home country. It was a deliberate message about her foundation, her identity, and her unbroken line of descent from ancestors who knew how to survive against overwhelming odds. She could have chosen any massive European luxury house to dress her for her biggest night. Those brands would have gladly gifted her thousands of dollars in high couture just to have her wear their name. Instead, she chose her roots. She chose the woven pineapple fibers of her ancestors to announce her arrival among the elite tier of global athletes. That choice reflects the heavy burden she has carried since her early junior days. The endless flights across time zones, the lonely hotel rooms in foreign countries where nobody speaks your language, the quiet meals eaten while studying match footage alone. Think about it. While European players take a short train ride or a 2-hour flight to their next tournament, Alex Eala was crossing oceans. Every single ranking point she earned cost her twice as much energy, twice as much money, twice as much emotional toll as her Western peers. The financial strain alone is enough to bankrupt most families: the coaching fees, the travel costs, the physiotherapy, the equipment, yet she kept swinging. She absorbed the pressure of millions of Filipinos watching her every move, analyzing every scoreline, and somehow turned that crushing weight into rocket fuel. Everyone loves a young tennis prodigy when they're winning junior slams. The media loves to hype up teenagers with fast swings and big smiles. But the transition from a talented kid to a full-grown professional facing ruthless Grand Slam champions is the hardest jump in all of sports. It is absolutely brutal. The physical demands tear young bodies apart. The relentless travel schedule creates emotional isolation that would break most adults. The mental pressure destroys promising careers before they truly begin. Standing shoulder to shoulder with a living legend like Novak Djokovic does not happen simply because you hit a good forehand. It is the raw, unforgiving result of years spent in the shadows, grinding through empty smaller tournaments far from the glamour and the cameras of Madrid. She had to build her own path because there was no blueprint for a Filipina player to reach this specific height in the modern era. She embraced her roots and used them as armor against the doubt. But the transition from junior star to standing beside global icons was nearly impossible. The challenges were stacked so incredibly high that the statistics practically guaranteed she would fail. The system is designed to weed out players who lack the right pedigree or the right passport. And if you have ever felt like an outsider trying to break into a world that was clearly not built for you, then you already know exactly what kind of fire it takes to survive that journey. There was a time not so long ago when the Western tennis media offered nothing but pure silence regarding the potential of Alex Eala. They looked at her metrics, they looked at her background, and they implicitly asked, can she really survive the brutal WTA ecosystem? Let us be completely honest about the reality of professional tennis. It is a physically violent sport masked by country club traditions and polite applause. When you step onto the professional tour, you are no longer playing against talented juniors who are just happy to compete. You are facing grown women who have spent a decade perfecting the dark arts of winning ugly. European players are often taller, naturally stronger, shaped by different developmental programs that emphasize power from an early age. American players come onto the court with massive serves and explosive baseline power that can blow you off the court entirely. The tennis establishment looked at a young girl from Southeast Asia and seriously wondered if she could truly handle the sheer physical force of the modern game. They doubted her heavy ground strokes. They questioned her ability to endure grueling three-set matches on slow red clay where every single point feels like running a marathon uphill. And the media response to her early professional struggles was absolutely chilling in its silence. When she suffered heartbreaking losses in small tournaments scattered across random cities you've never heard of, there were no sympathetic articles written about her fighting spirit. There were no deep dives into her tactical adjustments by major sports networks. The massive global sports media only cares about established champions or loud viral sensations. A hardworking Filipina grinding through the lower tiers of professional tennis simply did not fit their narrative algorithm. She was practically invisible to the Western press. Imagine the immense psychological weight of that silence. You are putting in grueling hours in the gym until your muscles scream. You are hitting thousands of tennis balls until your hands blister and bleed. You are doing everything right, but the tennis world refuses to look in your direction. The only noise you hear is the deafening expectation from back home, millions of Filipinos tracking your live scores in the middle of the night, every dropped set echoing as a collective sigh across the internet. It is an invisible, crushing pressure that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. Most 20-year-old athletes completely crumble under that kind of national expectation. They crack and they break when they hit the brutal ceiling of the top 100 rankings. Every time Alex got close to a major breakthrough, she would run into a seasoned veteran who simply knew how to win ugly, someone who would disrupt her rhythm, exploit her lack of tour experience, and drag her into the deep water where young players drown. The losses piled up. Lonely flights back home felt longer and colder. Those are the darkest moments in any underdog journey. The quiet, desperate hours in an empty locker room when the adrenaline fades and the terrifying doubt creeps in. Will I ever be strong enough? Will I ever break through this invisible wall? The tension builds with every missed opportunity. It feels exactly like watching a slow heartbeat on a medical monitor, just waiting and hopping for a sudden massive spike to show that the patient is still alive. The silence was heavy, the failures were incredibly bitter, but those agonizing defeats were secretly forging an absolute monster on the tennis court. Every single loss was a masterclass in resilience. Every moment of media silence taught her that she did not need their validation to build her game. The critics demanded proof, and on the night of April 20th, 2026, Alex Eala did not just give them proof, she gave them an absolute masterclass in queen energy. Then came the Laureus Awards. When Alex stepped onto that red carpet in her modern Filipiniana dress, the atmosphere in Madrid shifted like a weather front moving in without warning. She was not acting like a rookie happy to be there. She arrived like she owned the entire place. Let us analyze this exact moment in forensic detail, because it is the ultimate turning point of her career. The Laureus Awards is not a regular red carpet event for minor celebrities. It is a gathering of the absolute apex predators of global sports. You have World Cup winners, legendary Olympians and athletes who have redefined human potential walking those halls. The tennis elite treat this night as their own private celebration of dominance. Yet the most viral image of the entire evening was not of a Spanish phenom or an American superstar. It was Alex Eala standing right in the absolute center of the sports universe. She posted a selfie that instantly detonated across the internet. On her left was Novak Djokovic, on her right was Eileen Gu. Her caption was modest, she was sandwiched between greatness. But the image itself communicated something far more dangerous to her rivals. The highest level of tennis is an incredibly exclusive club. Superstars like Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Aryna Sabalenka do not just accept anyone into their inner circle. They recognize their own kind. They recognize the undeniable aura of a future champion. By welcoming her into that specific photograph, they were officially validating her status as a true peer. Let us talk about Eileen Gu for a moment, because she is the key to understanding this dynamic. Eileen Gu represents the absolute pinnacle of the modern athlete crossover, Olympic dominance fused with massive high-fashion appeal. She moves between snow and couture runways as if they are the same territory. Standing next to her is a massive statement of intent. It means Alex Eala is not just aiming to win tennis matches. She is positioning herself to become a global cultural icon who transcends her sport entirely. And then you have Novak Djokovic. The man has dominated tennis for 2 decades, seen thousands of promising teenagers fade into obscurity, and developed an almost supernatural sense for separating genuine champions from momentary flashes. He does not waste his time taking selfies with players who lack the ultimate champion mindset. His presence in that photo is the ultimate seal of approval from the highest authority in tennis, a silent nod that says, yes, she belongs here. I want to pause right here, because this shift in power is absolutely seismic. Look at the sheer confidence it takes to walk up to the greatest players on the planet and look perfectly at home in their terrifying presence. Do you think the traditional tennis establishment was truly ready for an Asian player to command this level of respect so early in her career? The Philippine sports media completely lost their minds, rightfully so. Major networks pointed out that she did not look small next to those absolute giants. She looked like a movie star stepping into a leading role. The camera shutters fired like rapid gunfire. Flashes illuminated her blush beige gown from every angle. The noise was deafening, and every single photo cemented her new reality. She was no longer the underdog trying to peek over the fence to catch a glimpse of the champions. She had kicked the front door wide open, walked through it, and taken a seat at the main table. This is the true definition of queen energy. It is not about being loud or arrogant or demanding attention. It is about a quiet, terrifying certainty in your own ultimate value. When she smiled for that viral photo, she was silently telling the entire WTA tour that the waiting period was over. She survived the darkness of the lower circuits. She absorbed the silence of the Western media. And she emerged on the other side completely unbreakable, ready to dominate. The internet broke, timelines flooded with her face. But what happened the morning after that historic night is what should truly terrify the rest of the WTA. The reaction was instantaneous. Global sports media and fashion icons alike dubbed her look the perfect representation of the modern athlete, utterly ruthless on the court, devastatingly elegant on the red carpet. Major networks in the Philippines, ABS-CBN, GMA Network, ran the story nonstop. But this was no longer just local news. The WTA itself officially recognized her unbelievable elegance and the fierce national pride she brought to the event. That is incredibly rare. The governing body of the women's tour usually reserves this level of aesthetic praise for established Grand Slam winners, but they could not ignore the sheer magnitude of her presence. The internet traffic alone generated by her appearance forced the entire tennis ecosystem to pay attention. They suddenly realized that she brings a completely untapped demographic of millions of fiercely loyal fans to the sport, viewers who might never have watched a WTA match before but will now tune in just to see her. Fashion bloggers and lifestyle magazines immediately began dissecting every detail of her outfit. They pointed out the brilliant dichotomy. The bold waist cutout was not just a stylistic choice. It highlighted the core physical strength of an elite athlete, the powerful muscles built through thousands of hours of agonizing training. Yet the overall silhouette remained deeply sophisticated and traditionally rooted. They called her the absolute perfect modern athlete, someone who can execute terrifyingly aggressive baseline winners during the day and then effortlessly command high-fashion circles at night. That is a terrifying combination for anyone trying to compete against her for global endorsements. Brands are scrambling right now. They see a young woman who possesses the lethal competitive drive of a seasoned veteran and the flawless grace of a runway model. This dual identity is exactly what builds a massive global brand. We are witnessing the birth of the Eala phenomenon in real time. For decades, tennis superstars have tried to manufacture this exact type of crossover appeal using expensive PR agencies and massive corporate sponsorships. Alex Eala did it organically by staying intensely true to her heritage. She combined elite sports dominance with the undeniable cultural soft power of the Philippines. When millions of young girls look at her, they do not just see a tennis player. They see a living, breathing blueprint for how to conquer the world without ever forgetting where you came from. The streets of Manila and the global hubs of the Filipino diaspora are buzzing with a renewed sense of sporting pride. She has validated every single person who ever felt overlooked by the Western media machine. The momentum from that single night in Madrid is practically immeasurable. It turned a personal victory into a massive global cultural event. She has conquered the red carpet and won over the legends of the sport. Now there is only one thing left to do. Because this is no longer just a story about a tennis player climbing the ranks. Alex Eala is becoming a cultural icon, breaking barriers while literally wearing the heritage of her nation on her sleeves. We need to talk about the absolute genius of her timing because the tennis calendar is completely unforgiving. Right after the flashbulbs fade and the red carpet is rolled away, the reality of the tour hits you like a serve to the body. The Madrid Open kicks off immediately, running from April 22 to May 3. And this is where the real psychological warfare begins. I want to give you a very specific insider perspective on how professional tennis actually works. Most casual fans think tennis is purely about forehands and backhands, technique and fitness, but the matches at the highest level are often won in the locker room before the players even step onto the court. When Alex Eala walks into the player lounge at the Madrid Open this week, she's bringing an entirely new aura with her. Her opponents saw those viral pictures. The veteran players who used to look at her as just another talented kid, another promising junior who might or might not make it, are now looking at a woman who rubs shoulders with Novak Djokovic. This creates massive psychological leverage. It is an absolute masterclass in mind games without saying a single word. When you attend an A-list event like the Laureus Awards, you elevate your status in the subconscious minds of your rivals. They start to fear you just a little bit more. They respect your presence. When the draw is announced, nobody wants to see her name next to theirs. That queen energy she displayed in her Filipina gown translates directly into a terrifying competitive advantage on the red clay. Imagine being her first-round opponent. You spent the weekend grinding through practice sessions, obsessing over your own technique, while she was busy breaking the internet alongside the greatest players alive. The mental deficit begins before the coin toss even happens. She is walking onto the court with the validated backing of the absolute sporting elite. This is the beautiful, universal truth of her current run. She is proving that sports can elevate culture to the highest possible level. Every time she steps onto the court wearing her gear, she carries the spirit of that woven piña fabric and the pride of the pañuelo with her. She's not just playing for ranking points or prize money anymore. She's playing to permanently rewrite the geography of global tennis. She is forcing the traditional European and American strongholds to make room for Southeast Asian greatness. Clay court tennis is notoriously unforgiving. It requires incredible patience, agonizing stamina, and the ability to suffer beautifully. The ball bounces high and slow, demanding absolute physical perfection and tactical intelligence. Taking the pristine elegance of that red carpet and translating it into sliding through the thick red dirt of Madrid is the ultimate paradox of professional tennis. But if anyone can bridge that gap, if anyone can carry the poise of a cultural icon into the grid of a 3-hour baseline war, it is her. The Laureus night was her glorious coronation. But as the Madrid Open begins, the real battle on the slow, punishing clay takes over. The transition from high fashion to grinding out 3-set matches in the Spanish sun is the ultimate test of her physical and mental endurance. Do you think this newly cemented queen energy will translate to a historic run this week against the toughest veterans on the tour? Will the psychological advantage she built on the red carpet give her the edge she needs to dominate the clay courts of Madrid? The draw is going to be absolutely brutal, and the next few weeks will define the rest of her season. If you want to see exactly how this historic tournament unfolds, every strategic move, every mental battle, every moment that proves whether the world is finally ready for the ultimate rise of Alex Eala, you need to stay locked in. Because this story is far from over. In fact, it's only just beginning.